You can give us a thumbs up. Okay, let's take a look. Yep. So we are live now, and people should be joining us shortly. So we're gonna hold on till a second. Neha, what do you think? We hold on for a
Sure.
minute or so and see when people are joining us.
Yes,
Yeah.
let's do that.
Let people get a minute, because they're joining us on Saturdays, which is amazing always.
Right.
Yeah. Tell us in the meantime, Neha, how are you doing and how are you coming into this live today? What are you feeling?
Yeah. Well, I think I am excited and looking forward to interacting with a lot of the other young members. It's more of a allyship sort of a conversation that I'm hoping it to be,
Yeah.
where we could just have some honest conversations around what are the struggles that we face, and what can
Mm.
we do collectively about it, even if it's just sometimes being there for each other, if nothing more.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that because we met via LinkedIn, right? And it wasn't that long ago. But I feel like every time we chat and we call or we text, we there's a sense of being there for each other.
Absolutely.
We're probably, going through similar things or have experienced similar things and are
Yeah,
very, very passionate about helping everybody else, but also helping us get out of, whatever situations we are in, helping us progress and helping us navigate systems that are in place. So thank
absolutely.
you.
Yeah, we met through LinkedIn, both of us,
Yeah.
and I think we met because we read about each other's
Yeah.
uh, similar passions that you just spoke
Yeah.
about. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think what I'll do now is probably give a bit of a background on me, just for the audience who's probably joining us and watching. And Neha, please feel free to do the same. But hi everybody, my name is Sakshi, Sakshi Bansal, and I'm a founder of a charity called Project Leap. We work in equal education. I've been working with youth for a very, very long time now on skill development. And quite recently, I started another foundation called Young Leaders Careers, and it is about helping young people navigate organizational systems. And I'll talk about it a little bit more, but it's really nice to see people today. Neha, what about you?
Thanks, Sakshi. I am Neha Khandekar. I am a researcher and a development sector professional. I have been working in India primarily, but also dabbled a little bit in the South Asian space, for research primarily leading to or related to water, climate change, livelihood issues, and of course, at the same time, youth for social impact, and which is where some of us came together and we have built and nurtured a space called Indian Youth Water Network, which with you I'm very excited to share my experiences in a bit.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you're based in India, aren't you, Neha?
Yes,
Perfect. And I'm based in London, so I think we have a bit of a global view now of the issues and what's going on ground for our home country in India, but then also globally, what some of the youth is facing. So what we'll do today is we'll talk a little bit about our experiences. I'll share a bit about young people in employment. I'm a consultant, so young people in organizations and what are the challenges and narratives. And Neha will share her experiences of young people in social impact spaces and empowerment spaces. And we'll try to answer some of the questions that we got ahead of this live on the registration link. But very welcome. Please send us questions on the chat. I am keeping an eye, so I will pick things up. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to your comments as we go across this live. And maybe I'll get it started. Neha, what do you think?
yes. Looking forward to hearing you, Sakshi.
well, it's interesting, because Neha, in our interactions and in our conversations, we have never felt like We have seen each other with our age or with our color or where we sit, right? We spoke to each other very passionately about our skills and our experiences and what we want to do in life. I think it's interesting when I look at the narrative that people have these days about younger generation, right? We've always had that. Every other generation has had a narrative about the younger generation. But this time specifically, I'm looking at the narrative, um, and the narrative is that we are very coddled, that we are oversensitive, too ambitious, but still want to be influencers, don't want to work, don't know how to work, maybe even too passionate sometimes. That's the sort of words that I've heard. And it's not just me, there's a lot of research about it. So people can go and look at that kind of research by Francolini and all these brilliant researchers. And what that has meant for our generation is two things. Is one, we start saying, yeah, maybe that's true, right? We internalize that we are incompetent, we don't have the ability, or we're not made for organizations, and we start quitting the workforce altogether. And we know that for organizations, that's been a big issue, right? Organizations are trying to hire more younger population, encouraging more younger people to come into work, but they're not able to do that, right? We know that it's a big issue. There's a war for talent and all that. And the second thing it does to young people is it creates this narrative for them that they're not good enough. And not only does this lead to mental health issues, of course it does. It's really traumatic to experience that and hear that, but it also makes you more susceptible to bullying and harassment at work and outside of work. It also makes you more prone to being perpetuators of people who will bully and harass others as they progress in the organizations, because you realize maybe the only way to stay is to play this game and to navigate and manipulate the system, because we are not inherently built for it. Also, the organizations are inherently not built for this generation, right? My generation grew up with the idea that the world is ending. We need to do something about it, and we need to do something about it quickly. And we did, right? A lot of us volunteer, a lot of us have charities, a lot of us have startups, a lot of us are influencers. We like to get our messages out there. We have a voice. We don't shy away from using it. We understand social media quite well. Our ways of communicating are quick with a sense of boldness. Organizations are not built for that. They like templates, they like similarity, they like control, almost this idea of managed risk. So I think it's interesting that young people are encouraged to enter into work, but they have this kind of narrative around them that is not very supportive. They have systems that don't support their skill set and their strengths. And then they also have this idea that okay, we will exit and we will do something of our own. But when you do something of your own, I think unfortunately what people forget is not all startups are billionaires, and not everybody is made to be in a startup, and not everybody has the luxury to open a startup or be an entrepreneur or leave the workplace altogether. So what happens to those people, right? Those people stay in the organizations. They accept their fate, that they have to go through this narrative and they have to go through this state of trauma and sort of shock. um, and they have to accept it, and they have yeah, they have to continue their work. That is quite shocking. So when I read the research around this, and this is a term called youngism now instead of ageism, youngism, which is ageism towards young people, and it is the highest reported form of discrimination at workplace. Highest reported form. One in two people face ageism at work. So that, the economic implications of that are insane. I mean, you're telling young people they're not good enough to work. How are young people ever going to fend for themselves and build a livelihood where they can, build income? So for me, a big part of this and maximum part of this is working with organizations and creating systems that are inclusive, that genuinely want young people in. They don't want to keep us out. But equally working with young people in the meantime, because we still have to earn and pay our bills and go through life. So how do we think about our employment, and what are the skills we build, and how do we create a support network with each other to say, help me navigate this, or how have you done this before, or how can we do this together? And that's really what YLC is about, is saying that we are all leaders because we have a voice. How do we keep that as we try to earn some money and build a livelihood, and really just exist?
Yeah.
What do you think, Neha?
Yeah, Sakshi, a lot of the points that you said resonate so deeply. And even though I operate in a relatively smaller section, in the sense the sector is water sector, and Indian Youth Water Network primarily is responding to what you said, which is creating these safe spaces and inclusive, trying to create these inclusive spaces
Mm,
for coming together.
mm,
So even though the larger vision is to reflect on the ongoing paradigm of water science and policy in India, but I feel that the underlying challenges are the same for young people, early career researchers even, and therefore I completely agree with you on the aspect of building these solidarity networks. The challenge that I personally feel that I faced was to still not keep it a group of young people who are relatively privileged, and I can
mm,
speak that about myself as well. But now that we are 3 years into the network,
mm,
I think we really want to also understand the the challenges that are faced by young people in India at the grassroots, and where access to opportunities for education and employment is not the same. So it's in a way serves so youth in social sector or youth motivated to work for social impact. It's a twofold conversation that we need to have. I think one is to also be there for each other because it's a very challenging
mm,
space to work in.
mm,
I can say personally for myself that when I was working with civil society organizations at the grassroots, especially on issues related to water access and availability due to ongoing infrastructure heavy solutions,
mm,
and that leads to inequitable access to resources.
mm,
uh, when you go and do ethnography on the field, it takes a toll on your own mental health as well. And a lot of the organizations, at least at that point in time, were not talking about it.
mm,
I did not know who to go to and speak to about these issues as a young
mm,
social, as a young person who wanted to um, be there in the social sector. And like you said, that either we submit to the ways of the system or we exit. But exiting is not easiest and always an option. It requires a lot of risk taking ability. Again, it requires us to have resources which not all of us are um, privileged to have. It requires us to have access to certain information which not all of us have equally, because we do not come from the same caste, social background, gender.
mm,
So all of these factors affect
mm,
us becoming
mm,
these
mm,
successful entrepreneurs, like you were sharing.
mm, mm, mm,
But I also feel like in social sector, I think a lot of at least from my observation, I can see that a lot of the young people are doing really well, also by using technology and social media at their disposal. Because while tech enables us to do things in a faster way, and youth are enabled to do these, they're skilled in
mm,
these areas. And social media, a lot of the tools like Twitter or LinkedIn are freely available and can be used. in a very mm, good way to do activism, etc.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
sometimes there are cases of intimidation in academia that I've seen a lot of my peer group pointing out towards.
Mm.
Uh, there's a sense of safety net that one feels to
Mm.
be part of these networks as young people, especially.
Yeah.
So yeah, just wanted to respond to that as well. And yeah, one of the other things that you spoke about, which is breaking the patterns.
Mm.
Um, I think that's a very important point also, because often while working in these systems, as young people, we don't know better, so we tend to embrace, well, not embrace, but then we tend to think that this is the normal, and
Yeah.
therefore we
Tolerated. Yeah.
tolerate it or accept it. And therefore, when we move to a leadership position, it sometimes it's a internal battle
Yeah.
of sorts,
Yeah.
uh, and then you have to step back and be aware. And that's
Yeah.
where I think a lot of the times what has worked for me is taking feedback from my, I don't think I have been a perfect mentor all the time,
Mm.
but just taking the feedback when I realize that I have done a
Mm.
mistake, um,
Mm.
and asking them if this is not okay or not comfortable,
Yeah.
and undoing some of the things that I was subjected to, maybe.
Mm. Mm. That's an interesting point, Neha, because I think one of the biggest suggestions maybe that I always give, wherever I'm speaking or whenever I'm speaking to students is actively creating two kind of support network. One who are in your situation, maybe a little bit senior than you or a bit more junior than you or at the same level, um, who know your situation in and out and understand it and have the context and the background, and then
Mm.
having a second kind of sort of mentoring peer-to-peer support network that doesn't know anything about your situation, is quite different actually from your background, from your organization, and you go to them and ask, this is the situation, what do I do? So you get an insiders and outsiders perspective anytime you're facing a dilemma. And I think I say this to people, but when I am really struggling, sometimes I also forget to reach out. So I think the idea is creating these networks and nourishing them, which means constantly asking for support and giving support, because that's how you actually build a bond. And then remembering to go to them when things go bad, and not tolerating things and not just taking things on their face value. That this is how it is and this is how it should be, and it's okay. I will, deal with it. Yes, you will deal with it, but you deal with it in the best way possible. And so you reach out to your network and see what the suggestions are, and then you do as you like. And I think that is a very important suggestion, Neha. And I also want to know from you, if it's okay, on, and you touched upon this a little bit with the cost and the access to resources and how that's different. What is the difference in sort of access to social work opportunities and social development work, for our young people in the rural areas versus young people in tier one, tier two cities, for example, in India?
Hmm. I feel like, Sakshi. Okay, so I think one is that sometimes we, from as young people working in the social sector in big cities, go to young people in the villages and work as friends together.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so that is one way to understand the issues of the youth today at the grassroots, because of course the challenges faced are um, slightly different. There is a lot of youth migration in the region, in rural areas in India, and they do not want to, let's say, continue the same form of livelihoods such as farming, etc., although there are a lot of other alternative
Mm.
successful examples as well. I know at least two of my friends who have been able to um, do farming very successfully, and not just that, they are also doing some really wonderful work around improving water access and availability for their own region. And I think that's where I feel that's why I was saying technology and social media has enabled them to do so, because they are trained, uh, and they have been able to do crowdsource funding and all
Mm,
these, use all these tools to, and therefore social media was very very helpful. And because they have these accounts on social media platforms such as Instagram or Twitter, so I think that is a very important tool that they have used. And then the other aspect is that we I think the youth at the grassroots, if they want to come and work with us in the social sector, I think it is still quite unequal in terms of agency. They are often given the roles of being field staff, field researchers for us,
mm,
and not given, if it's a research project, they're not given equal authorship, often uh, not paid well even.
mm,
I've
mm.
seen development projects, their salaries are the lowest in the hierarchy, and this is not okay. Um, uh, so we live in a, as we were I think speaking about before the webinar as well, we live in a hierarchical, patriarchal, and racist system, and that is the reality. And I think it's important, even in development sector, to be reflexive about these realities,
Mm, mm,
and especially young people who are willing
mm.
to work in the social sector, even from the grassroots,
Yeah,
to motivate them and encourage them, because they know the best about their region. And if we build their capacity and welcome them in a dignified fashion,
yeah,
uh, I think they can be the biggest change makers.
yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
That's really well said, Neha. I love the fact that you use the word dignified because that's what this comes down to is it's dignity at all levels because everybody brings something to the table. And I want to share a little bit about the systems, right? We talk so much about the systems and that these systems are this and that, but what are these systems? I think it's important to know that when we talk about systems, say in an organization, the systems look like the system that hires you, right? So, what is the hiring and the recruitment process like? Where are they hiring from? Who are they looking to hire? What is their criteria? Then, once you enter the organization, the systems look like how is the knowledge managed, right? Are you only getting knowledge from one side? Are you never giving knowledge? Are you never given the opportunity to sort of share your knowledge? So, what is the flow of knowledge? How is the knowledge coming to you? Do you have access to it? Does everybody have access to it?
hmm,
Then you have your pay and promotion. So who is paid, which you were talking about just now, right? Who is paid how much, what is the criteria for that payment and for that recognition, how, who will decide it, who will change it, who will update it. The other systems look like compensation packages. They look these are different systems in which you interact with an organization that make the organization real for you. These are real day things that you interact with every day in an organization. Hierarchy is a system as well. So that looks like organizational governance, right? Who is
yeah,
sitting underneath who? Do you have to be senior if you're this much of years age, or this much older, or have this much gray hair, or is it different? Is it based on skills? So I think it's important to understand what these systems are. Similarly, outside of organizations, the same systems exist wherever you go. They just take different shapes and forms. So I
yeah,
think recognizing the impact of how the system is created and the impact it has on you, I think that is really really important. And that is the view that your mentors can give you as somebody who have that high level view. And sometimes even your peers can give you because you are in the situation, you don't realize, and they're able to take you a step out and say, actually, this is happening, this is the system, think about what you want to do next. And so I really think that some of the skills that young people, I think we can invest in learning is negotiations and conflict management. So how do you
hmm,
handle conflict, how do you manage negotiations and persuasion? I think the second is understanding systems. So the systems that we think are these like vague in the air things, what are they? So understanding the concept of the system and how to spot them and how to cynically look at them and criticize them. And I think communication is a big thing. So I think we have the tools like social media, like you were saying, but using that really to say I'm going to balance my personal brand and what I stand for and my social development and my impact, that I really care about, with a job or a stream of income or a startup or a business that gives me the money and income, or sustains my livelihood. Either you mix them both, that is great if you can do that, or they are two separate things for you, and so you have to manage those two things. And I think more and more as we progress, what I'm seeing is that these two things are different, that people enter organizations now with a personal brand already, or with a personal idea or a personal sort of purpose already. And so you have to then understand these are not just young people who have no experience coming to you anymore. These are young leaders who are entering organizations with set purposes. Or some people even have like massive experience, running their own charities and startups and leading teams and researching. So how do you then manage these leaders in the organization instead of saying that these are just young people coming in and we can change them and mold them? They're not moldable that much anymore. They're actually coming with ideas that you need to use for the system. So hopefully that gives people some ideas and answers some of the questions as well that we got about skills we can build and things we can do.
Well said. So well said. I think, and I do think, Sakshi, that the change is happening. I have had some young managers who I have worked with. Oftentimes, I have been the one in the caregiving roles. I like to call them. I don't agree with the term management or these kind of things. It requires a lot of ground logistic work, and a lot of the young people or women are often doing these jobs in an organization. But I have of late seen a lot of my young male friends as well stepping into these roles so that the others can grow, and a lot of young managers who are very encouraging,
Mm,
and like you
mm,
said, they are willing to explain the the challenges of the system to you,
yeah,
so that you are able to somehow uh,
yeah,
navigate
yeah,
through it with a little bit of
yeah,
ease.
yeah,
Yeah, I also feel like what you said about open communication and conflict management. I think these skills are something that we are often not trained with. Some people
yeah,
are blessed with it, but for some of us who are uh, mm, well, always, because of either cultural training,
yeah.
especially in India, taught to not speak up. Uh,
Mm,
so these
mm,
probably these maybe these skill sets are something that we either need to also use to build capacity of the
yeah,
youth.
yeah.
Uh, I was thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And very important point there on cultural differences, right? Because they are true and they exist, and that's how we've been brought up. And the idea is not to change who we are or to let go of our culture, but the idea is to use that as a strength as we navigate these systems. And a lot of cultures, like Mexican culture or Latin American culture or some, Eastern European culture, is very similar to Indian culture actually. The more I live here, the more I realize some of our foundational values about family and not speaking up and accepting and having a high threshold of pain and tolerance. These are quite common actually, and so we all go through similar things. Um, as Asians, but then some other cultures as well. So I think it's really interesting you bring that up, Neha. And I think obviously you and I can go on for hours about this, but I would really encourage people to reach out to either you and I, Neha. What do you think on really taking this forward? I mean, I'm looking to do more research in this area, I am looking for partners in this area where we can, advocate about it a bit more, where we can talk about this topic of youth employment and future of work in different sectors and spaces. What are you expecting, Neha, in terms of people reaching out to you?
Absolutely, Sakshi. And when you also spoke about earlier that we come with our own personal set of values and purpose, a sense of purpose, and a lot of us are wanting to be leading those conversations. Therefore, uh, organizations and systems must welcome that, and I think that is exactly what the power of the youth is,
Yeah,
to be able to speak about some of the new ways of changing. And this is so relevant for especially social sector,
yeah, yeah,
which is why I think I'm expecting a lot more of these, having these uncomfortable conversations, and also some sort of activist approaches such that we
mm,
can speak about transforming, well, for IYWN it could be water science and policy, but largely the social sector space, and
yeah,
bringing the conversations that we
yeah,
usually do not get to have
yeah,
because of
yeah,
the system challenges.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Or at least the conversations we have in closed doors, right? Let's bring them out.
Yes, absolutely.
Good, good. Thank you so much. I always love talking to you, Neha. I learn so much, and I'm sure
Same
everybody else
here.
does also.
Yeah, likewise.
Okay, goodbye, and we'll see hopefully some of you guys on Young Leaders Careers and IYWN. So please reach out to either Neha or myself.
Do we have any questions, or do we want to close now?
I think I don't see any questions in the chat. I think we can close, Neha, and we answered a lot of the questions that we got on the form, right?
Yes.
But send us questions after. Yeah.
Yes. Take care. See you
Take
around.
care.
Bye.